Yes.
Welcome, Juhi. I'm so excited to be seeing you today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to chat with me. I wanted just to thank you. I just wanted to preempt this by saying normally this would be an Instagram live, but we were unable to, for technical reasons, we were unable to do that with you. So we are going to do a recording of our live discussion on Zoom, and then I'm going to upload this to my Instagram video channel so that everybody can see this, because you are part of our wellness retreat presenters. And I wanted to get a little bit of an insight first, if you don't mind sharing who you are, where you're located, and what a typical day or week in the life of you is.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Juhi. I'm actually, I'm based in Dubai right now, but I was in Australia for the last 9 years. So pretty much all my education and my work was in Sydney. And then I just recently moved back to be closer to home. So I practice as a clinical dietitian. I did my undergrad in Melbourne University, and then I did my Masters of Nutrition and Dietetics from University of Sydney. And then I worked in Sydney for about 4.5 years in private practice. So I was seeing clients one-on-one with all kinds of conditions, and a lot of them would be referred by doctors. So weight management, chronic disease management, management of like cholesterol and blood pressure. I would see a lot of gastro issues. So irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, a lot of hormonal issues like PCOS. So I was seeing pretty much a whole range, because I think when you're kind of starting off, when you start working and you get referrals, yes, it's pretty much, it's the whole mix. But then over the past maybe 1 or 2 years, I realized that I really particularly am drawn to gut health issues. And I'm definitely going to talk more about that. I think gut health issues and weight loss were 2 areas that I was particularly interested in because of the results that I was seeing. So I was like, yeah, these results are so tangible. And I can see the struggle among the clients that I had. A lot of them were women clients who had so much going on in their lives, just, managing the responsibilities. And they were putting in all this effort. It's funny, actually, a lot of people think that the patients who come to dietitians usually have this horrible diet and then you're going and changing everything.
Right.
What I found was interesting is that a lot of them had actually done, because there's just so much information on Google. So it was like a weight loss client. They had done a lot of work on their diet, and then they're coming and seeing you, and it's like, wow, your diet's actually really good. Maybe you're being too restrictive. Maybe you need to, actually manage other factors, and we need to look into that besides the diet, or we need to figure out a plan that's sustainable. So I just enjoyed that so much. And with gut health issues, it was the same thing. I grew up having a lot of gut health issues like constipation, and I used to get horrible symptoms associated with that. So for me, when a client would come in and say, I would have to say that some clients don't know that they're suffering with gut health issues, and that's what you figure out during the session. They may come to see you for weight loss and find out that, they're actually really bloated, and what they think is fat is actually just they're bloated. That's what it is. So just that whole sort of problem solving skills and, the results. And when they actually would tell me that, this has made such a difference, that was really amazing to hear. So I decided to just niche down. And basically now I have an online practice. It's called Soulful Dietitians. You can follow me on Instagram.
Yes.
And my big project that I'm doing now is I have collaborated with this yoga therapist. Her name is Prerna. And I can share the details with you to follow her as well. So she goes by Yoga with Prerna. And we've just basically collaborated to create a 3-month program, which has nutrition and yoga. Because I think especially with gut health issues, yoga has this phenomenal benefits. And if you've got a hormonal condition, in the background like PCOS, there's some really awesome, very evidence-based benefits that you get from something like PCOS, from something like yoga. Sorry, if you've got PCOS, you get benefits from yoga. We kind of individualize our plan for each patient. And so far it's pretty busy, and we're taking on clients. They're pretty happy. So that's the big project that I'm kind of involved in right now. And I'm working 100% online. I'm in Dubai, but 100% online. So seeing clients all over the world. Actually, a lot of my clients are in Australia, which is interesting because I sometimes feel like I'm still there.
You're still connected. I wanted to ask you too, because I'm always fascinated when learning about dietitians in other countries, because we do things a certain way here to become dietitians. We have we have an undergraduate program first. Now, in the next couple of years, it will be mandated to have a master's degree as well. We also go through almost an entire year of supervised practice through an internship. Then we have to sit and take a national exam. And then we have to maintain our continuing education credits every 5 years to make sure that we're withstanding and upholding our credential. Is that process similar to you as well?
A little similar, and then not so similar as well. Because I know when I talk to US RDs, they do explain a process and I'm like, whoa, there's some more complexities. I think the US RD course is quite tough.
Yes.
And
expensive.
Expensive, a little bit more complex, I think. And that's why it's so sort of separate from, like if I were to go to US, I believe I would have to do quite a bit of conversion to get the bridge gap. So the way it works in Australia is we're actually moving towards the master's degree now. So there are still universities that offer a 4 years Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics. So basically you would do the 4 years degree, and then you would do, it's not even a year. Like I had a semester of placement. It was a long semester, but it was a semester of placement. And then you're basically qualified. So you don't have to do an RD exam.
Oh, lucky.
I know. I have to say, US is pretty tough on that. Like we don't have an RD exam. We have the university degree, and then we have our placement, and we have a research project, and then we're basically qualified to work.
To enter into that
pretty
too.
Cool.
Well, I know
the course is hard, I would say, but I think overall you sort of get it done a bit quicker, and there's a little bit less of that you have to apply for internship and wait to get matched, I think, if I'm not wrong. So that sort of stuff is not in Australia. But Australia, so I did a master's degree, so I had to do a master's degree. So I did a bachelor's degree. I did subjects like physiology and biochemistry, and then I was eligible to do the master's, and you have to get a good score and you do your master's. And that includes the placement and the research project. And then once you're done with that, you're basically out and ready and you're qualified, but you have to do your CPD. So that part is there. But I did the master's, and then there are some dietitians who've done the bachelor's degree. They're both kind of equivalent, but I think Australia is moving more towards the master's.
The master's degree. And I know when you and I had met, you told me about Monash University in Australia, which is very known for a lot of their research in gut health and what is known as now like the FODMAP or low FODMAP diets or interventions for gut health. So I wanted to just fast forward a little bit. Once you started specializing in what I believe is somewhat a complicated condition, because the gut runs from, as I like to say, mouth to south, like it's a whole bunch of things that could be going on there. And so your approach is based on an actual, you said a referral of an actual disease state that somebody's undergoing, or sometimes they don't really even know what they might have, but they're struggling with discomfort. What is the typical person that you see?
It's a bit of a mix. Some of them, I remember when I was working in Sydney, and even now, you do have some clients who have some idea what they have. Like maybe like, I think they might be like, I think I'm really constipated. Oh, but I'm also bloated sometimes. And I also get abdominal pain. I think the problem with gut issues is that a lot of people are misdiagnosed because it's so complex. Like you said, they might go to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh, your symptoms sound like IBS. Here's this low FODMAP sheet, and they actually don't have any idea what the FODMAP diet's all about. And it's a pretty complex diet, and they've just got this sheet and they're like, okay, but how is this exactly going to help my constipation? Maybe not really. So even if we talk about the low FODMAP diet, it's not something that has to just be given to everybody who has gut issues. They could have inflammatory bowel disease. They could have SIBO. So SIBO is the thing which there's a lot of research around now. So it's a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That has symptoms very similar to IBS. So you can imagine you go to a doctor and they're like, that sounds like IBS. Here's your sheet. That's it. And then there's the complexity of, and being someone who suffered from constipation as a child, when I was a young teenager as well, it was horrible. I can tell you that the low FODMAP diet doesn't actually help you with constipation. So it has to be tailored. And unfortunately, a quick appointment with the doctor, unless they really understand gastro issues, you can be misdiagnosed. You can do this restrictive diet. You do this diet, this low FODMAP diet for years, and it actually creates more problems in your gut microbiome.
Right.
A lot of the foods that you are trying to eliminate are actually also good for you. So there's just so much complexity involved that even the people who know that they have gut issues are not given the right diagnosis. Or you have other clients who are like, I just need to lose weight. Right. And then I'm like, but how are your bowels? Because I'm all about gut health. I'll always ask.
Dietitians love talking about poop. We love talking.
I know. And I have clients telling me, oh, I think that's TMI. And I'm like, it's not TMI at all. Let's look at the stool chart now. Let's get exactly, what your consistency is like. I want to know more. Tell me more. Because I know you're not going to have that conversation otherwise. So you might as well have it with me because I want to know all about it. Yeah. So, just to give you an example, I had a client who saw me just for weight loss. And then when I asked her the question about bowels, she said, yeah, I am quite bloated. And then we just worked on the bloating aspect of it. We actually ended up doing the low FODMAP diet. And, because she was like, oh, I was also told about IBS. And I was like, okay, let's try it. And she lost 5 kilos just by reducing the bloating. And I'm like, so that was your problem. It wasn't even about, because the diet's pretty healthy. But she had certain intolerances that had to be dealt with. So there are, and even with constipation, like some people think if they're going every day, they're not constipated. There's the question of, yes, you're going every day, but are you going properly? Because sometimes, some doctors will just be like, are you going every day? Okay, cool. But
are you straining? Properly? Right. What kind of consistency and texture is coming out of you when that's happening? Exactly.
So you've got a whole mix, but I would say that there's a lot more gut issues that people have than they think. Like, I don't know I know the statistics for IBS is pretty high, 1 in 1 in 4 in the US or something like that. If I'm not wrong. I could be wrong. I'm not very great at statistics, but I just think that there's a lot of people, because I pretty much a lot of my clients who see me for just weight loss, which is why I created this program, because I think when you have gut issues, it makes it a lot harder to lose weight. You could have this amazing diet where you're eating fruits and salads and everything, but you've got this underlying, dysbiosis, this imbalance in your gut bacteria, which is affecting your metabolism, or, you've got constipation. And so what you're holding on to and what you feel is fat is actually just bloated, and you're not emptying your bowels properly. So it's an important thing to talk about. And a lot of people are walking around not realizing that they're constipated. Or the problem is that, and I know that I've experienced this as well, when you've had gut issues for a long period of time, you don't know otherwise. You don't know what a normal gut is supposed to feel like, because you've always had this incomplete bowel motion or just feeling bloated. Like you could be having it for years, but because nobody talks about it, you're like, this is how it is. This is
right. Exactly. It can be very complicating, frustrating. I want to explain a few things for anybody who's not aware of what we're talking about. So the low FODMAP diet, or FODMAPs, are based on when you eat foods, right? You have usually carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And when carbohydrates break down, it is a natural process that they sometimes do what's called fermenting, right? They break down and they allow your gut bacteria to grow in that way. And what ends up happening is when they're feeding the gut bacteria, you end up becoming quite bloated in that sense. Like you can feel the gases kind of expanding there. So there are certain foods on the higher and lower FODMAP scale. So again, it's just about fermentable sugars that are related to carbohydrates. And what Juhi's talking about is that there's a process of looking at which ones might be the culprit. And by, I guess you're doing an elimination reintroduction approach in that too, or having like food journaling in that respect as well, like allowing them to track in their symptoms and their intake over a course of time, just to see what might be causing the problem. And going back to what you said too, especially with people with gut issues, which I totally understand, when people are uncomfortable, they feel like they might have to stay away from certain things all the time. And it can be very restrictive and kind of dangerous. So can you speak a little bit about allowing people to finally recognize that there is freedom and there is a place of comfort, that they can go back to feeling like they can live a normal life, they can socialize, they can eat out once they start allowing themselves to recognize, what foods might be the issue, or just the fact that they're correcting their gut health. How does it end up happening where they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I don't have to restrict myself, because that could be a little bit dangerous.
Absolutely. I think to start with, you want to know what exactly your problem is. Is it just that you have constipation and that's the reason you're bloated? Maybe it has nothing to do with IBS. Maybe you do have IBS. Maybe you have something called SIBO. Maybe you have a histamine intolerance. There's all kinds of things.
Right.
Maybe it's not even diet related. Maybe it's stress related. So getting that first diagnosis with your doctor and dietitian is really important, because then you'll know exactly what route to take. And usually if you talk about IBS, which is so common, you do the elimination diet. That elimination diet phase is the restriction part, where you're going around restricting a bunch of FODMAP foods, as you said, those carbohydrates that potentially can cause bloating. Then you do the challenge phase, where you are testing out which particular foods are causing the problem. And the key thing here is you're not trying to say, okay, I can't tolerate like a wheat, fructan is a sugar found in wheat, and you're going to try a bit of bread and be like, okay, that's it, I reacted to it, I'm done. You're trying to figure out to what extent you react to it,
right?
So that you know how much you can have. To be honest, it's all about, so the low FODMAP diet's a diagnostic tool. It's not meant to be a long-term diet. That is the thing that people need to know. It is a diagnostic tool. It is not a diet that you need to follow. And this is so important, because sometimes you'll hear like health professionals, doctors, maybe I feel like I'm just bashing doctors, but I think
doctors need to stay in their lane sometime. You're correct. Like doctors need to refer out to specialists, and we're the specialists when it comes to those things. So you are correct.
Even Google. Yeah,
right.
Like even Google would tell you low FODMAP diet is the cure to your IBS. That's wrong. Right. It's a diagnostic tool. It's like you would do a blood test to figure out what the problem is. You're doing the low FODMAP diet to figure out what could be triggering that. So you do the re-challenge phase and you say, okay, on the first day I had a slice of bread. I was okay with that. But then I had pasta and bread on the second day, and that I was not okay with that. So what do you do with that information? You say, I can have maybe 1 or 2 slices. I can do a sandwich in a day. But if I decide to have a sandwich in the afternoon and the pasta for dinner, I may have symptoms. I may not, because it's so multifactorial. Maybe that day my gut was being good and I didn't have symptoms. But it's a possibility that if I had more than the 1 or 2 slices of bread, I may have a problem. But that's also telling you that a little bit of bread in my diet is not going to be a problem. So if anything, it's actually giving you more freedom, because you're not just doing guesswork. You're not just going around eliminating like so many foods. Like FODMAPs is in fruits, it's in vegetables,
everything.
It's in breads, it's in everything.
All the good things the healthy things we're supposed to eat, right? Exactly.
Yeah, dairy fruits. Yeah. So if anything, it's actually telling you, look, you can have so many things, and it's very rare that you're going to react to everything anyway. So you may react to, few of those fermentable sugars, and then there'll be so many that you won't react to, and you won't have to worry about that. So it's all about telling you, look, I can tolerate it in this amount, but beyond this, it's going to be a problem. So you've got all the freedom. So it's not even a no FODMAP diet. Even when you do the elimination phase, there's an app that Monash University has created, which tells you, look, you can actually have this FODMAP in this amount. So it's not even like you're completely removing the FODMAP. You're just reducing the amount to see if your gut settles down. And then you're adding in and you're seeing, okay, this is my tolerance level. In fact, it's encouraged to try and test these things out after maybe 6 months to a year again, because your tolerance may change, your gut may be less sensitive. So if people are embarking on the low FODMAP diet, I want them to know that this is going to give you more food freedom. It's not meant to be long-term. So understand that this is not a diet for forever, and understand that this diet's actually going to give you more food freedom than put you on restrictions.
Yeah. And I love the way you're actually defining that, because as I often say to people too, the word diet, sometimes people think automatically, oh, that's a restriction. It might be temporary or long-term. And this is the way that I will always be eating, or eating for an extreme amount of time to reach a goal very quickly. But it's not. It can be, like you said, a diagnostic tool, a treatment plan, an intervention plan. It could also, like in the case of Mediterranean diet or vegetarian diet, that could just be how people have their meal, what their eating plan is. So that word diet doesn't necessarily have to always mean super restrictive. So I really love the way you just define that for us. So tell us a little bit too about the practice and the programs that you're doing, which, first of all, I love that you're collaborating with a form of physical activity / self-care as well, because I think that's really important to engage in a whole body type of approach too, where people are being very conscious about and deliberate about how they're treating themselves. And I also love the fact that you're having people commit, because sometimes things do take some time to develop habits and to get in the zone. And so much like you would with anything, if you're, like you said, you spend a semester doing something, it takes that long to learn and get established. So tell us if, is that something that you purposely did because you knew it took time? The one-on-one counseling things, the session by session, I also believe it's okay once in a while, but to do something where you actually have a start and an end to something requires you to commit. And a lot of dietitians are taking that approach where they're developing like programs where people come and they, have like a membership to it. So tell us a little bit too about what that's involved.
Yes. So you're absolutely right. I think the reason why I thought about collaborating is because I realized that a lot of times I used to tell my clients, look, you know what, why don't you do yoga? And then they're gone. And maybe they're seeing me for 5 sessions and I'm like, did they actually do it? Is it actually helping them? Whereas this way I get to actually work. So luckily me and Prerna is the yoga therapist. We were actually in the same school and then we just got in touch after many years. So it's pretty cool. We have a very good rapport. So we discuss every client pretty much on a daily basis and we're in touch. So sometimes I'll tell her, look, I think this client would really benefit from a meditation session with you. I think that stress may be causing her gut issues or stress is causing. We also know that stress could be a reason for weight gain as well, because stress increases your cortisol hormone. So you do sometimes have clients where you're like, what's going on? Like they're following such a good diet. They've got this calorie deficit. They're really exercising a lot, but they're not losing weight. Maybe there's just this underlying stress. So I feel like I like to believe that when it comes to things like weight loss and gut health, it's not just about the diet. It's about sleep. It's about stress. It's about your physical activity, but also the type of physical activity. So often when you've got IBS, running on the treadmill may not work for you. It might make you feel worse. You need something more gentle. You need something that's going to, be an activity that's going to help you with the weight loss, but also be gentle on your stomach. Get that. If you've got like a slow gut, you want to be moving the gut. You want to be doing those specific poses like that actually create that movement in your gut. They help with digestion.
Motility, right.
Motility, exactly. And that's a problem that we are facing, especially with COVID and everyone starting their sessions with that. This year was really bad because I was very inactive, and I was at home and I was working on my desk. It's one of, I would say it's one of the reasons.
And seated, like we're in this crunched position the whole day too.
Absolutely. Or we're eating at our desk and all of these things. So you just need that collaborative effect, like you need that collaborative plan for the client. And to be honest, sometimes I recently had a client who said, look, I did one yoga session and then she's like, I haven't felt better. Like in terms of my gut, I haven't felt this good in years. So all it took was one yoga session. So of course not everybody gets that instant effect, but I personally really believe in the value of yoga, and I believe in like doing an exercise that's right for you, because everybody thinks that everyone needs to be in the gym. I'm not a very gym person. I'd rather do yoga or like dance or go for a walk or something. And especially if I'm not if not having a good gut day, that I want to do something gentle. So you need when you have that, even with sleep, I think if you've got meditation and yoga session that puts you at ease, then you fall asleep better. And when you fall asleep better, your appetite's better because your appetite controlling hormones are better, and then you're also able to function better, you're able to exercise better. So it's just also connected, that I think having that holistic approach, I think it really helps. So it was on my mind. I think it came from the fact that I when I was working in practice, I would tell them you should do this, but then I don't know how that's actually happening.
Right. You have the checklist and you're like, well, you know what? Why don't
Yeah.
I just form a team and, and support you with this?
Yes.
So I think
Yeah.
it works on both levels. Both the client
Yeah.
that is coming to see you has to be
Yeah.
understanding that you have a particular approach, but you on your end
Yeah.
are also individualizing that to meet a particular client's needs. So not every person fits with every dietitian or every healthcare practitioner. So it's really good when you, just as general patient advocacy for those of you who are watching this, you know, to understand that if you don't love your doctor, or if you don't love your therapist, or if you're not really jiving with the person who's working with you on nutrition, that might not be the right person for you. You might need to work with somebody else who does understand you a little bit better. So, and keeping in mind too, that it is a very customized, individualized, not, as we say, not a one size fits all approach, because as you said, right, Juhi, there's so many factors going into it, even with people who are looking to manage the same thing or apply the same preventative or managing treatments to them. Every day they go home to a different set of people, like their sleep or their family relationships are different from each other. So I love that you have that approach to be able to help. And like you said, even sometimes with just one session of focusing on something you've never focused on before, it's like night and day. And you're kind of like retraining people how to treat their bodies and understand their bodies better.
Like you said, it's about meeting people where they are. You know, that's why the first thing that I do is I have a discovery call, which I'm so glad to see other dietitians do that as well. I think just like you said, because you're going to be talking to this person. So we have weekly consults that we do. There's weekly yoga sessions and there's weekly. So if I'm not the right fit for you, I want to know. But if you like me, then great, you know. So you have this discovery call. So you can, like, I want to understand what you want to gain from the program, because maybe, and I do this all the time, where you refer clients out. Like if there's someone you feel who may have an eating disorder or sounds like, you know, they need to fix that, then you want, I won't take them on, I'd refer them on. Or someone with, you know, some other complex thing that I'm not familiar with, then you refer them on. So that discovery call is a really good opportunity to just, you know, get to know them, to figure out what they want. And then if the chemistry, this is chemistry between you and the client, if that kind of fits, then great, you know. But you don't want to commit until, like, I don't want you to commit. I want you to be happy and go in with that positive mindset. So the
you're kind of like
call is
interviewing each other. And you mentioned the thing too about the, you know, when you first start out as a dietitian, you literally are just like taking anybody who's sent your way, because unless you really know what you want to focus on, when we're green, we want to learn a little bit about everything. So things happen sometimes organically as we are in our practices, or as we are working with other healthcare providers. We're seeing how we engage with certain clients and patients, and we're also getting feedback like, you're really good with this particular population. So for anyone out there also who's starting out in healthcare or starting out as a dietetic student, you know, pay attention to those things. It's okay not to know everything right away, and to start fine tuning. So now that you are sort of specializing in a particular field, condition, patient population, you're going to be kicking us off on Sunday, December 5, for our wellness retreat. And I want to come in and now ask about that, because on your time zone, obviously it'll be later in the day. My time zone, it'll be the first thing in the morning. So tell us a little bit about what we might expect from your session. What kind of discussion tips and talks are you looking to engage in? Is it going to be an interactive discussion or more like a presentation? Share with us a little bit about your thoughts on what you're presenting.
Yep. So what I've decided is I'm going to start off just talking about how I got into this thing. So my personal journey in my own, you know, when I was younger, I had certain gut issues that I was dealing with that was really, really debilitating, but I just didn't know what it was. And I think there would be a lot of people out there who just are like, what is the solution? Maybe there is no solution, or you almost think, this is my gut, this is how it is. I actually used to say that to myself when I was younger. This is how it is. This is my stomach.
This is it. I can't fix it.
But actually, stomach is a stomach. It's like a machine. There's always something you can do about it. So I want to just start off talking a little bit about my journey, and, you know, how obviously when I became a dietitian, I got interested and I did the Monash course and everything. That's how I figured out a treatment plan for myself. And then I extrapolated that to my clients and the kind of results that they got. And then basically I want to go from there, talking a little bit about what you shouldn't do on if you've got gut issues. There's certain things you might go on a restrictive diet for no reason, or what might be happening that's not correct. Like you might, like I said, you might go to a doctor, get a sheet to do the low FODMAP diet. You're out there not seeking the help of a dietitian. If you've not been told, it's a sad thing, but if you've not been told to see a dietitian, you might not know that's the way to go. So you've got this sheet and you're trying to do this diet, and there are people doing the low FODMAP diet for years. So some of those tips of what not to do. And then I sort of want to go into some, like maybe some steps of how to actually get a hold of what your gut issues are. So where do you go from where you are? You're suffering from these symptoms. What steps can you take with regards to diet and other lifestyle changes to just start your journey to gut health?
Yeah, like a self-assessment and next steps in that way too.
Yeah, like you might be seeing a dietitian already, or you're thinking about it, but how do you really get started? You've got this problem. You're at point A. How do you get from point A to just being in a better place with your gut? Obviously, it's not. I can't prescribe nutrition, like a treatment plan to everybody. It's not one size fits all. But there's definitely some steps that everybody needs to take if they've got a gut issue, and I want to talk about that. I want to give you a bit of a framework to get you started.
It's so important too, like I said before, with the patient advocacy, because we don't know if other healthcare providers even understand the value of a dietitian, even know what a dietitian is. In America, here in the United States, we do have a lot of things that are guided by what health insurance covers. So sometimes even certain conditions or the time spent working on managing a condition is very limited. So the doctors won't even bother sending people to a specialist like myself, or even a gastroenterologist. They'll stay with a primary care physician. And so I'm so glad. And there is a disclaimer, by the way, at the beginning and every certain point within the wellness retreat, I'm like, this is not medical advice. This is just education and information. But I really do think it's so important to educate and inform the consumer to say, like, here are the questions you should be asking, not just of yourself, but also of your healthcare provider too, and finding out a little bit more, especially if you want to take your health seriously, which I really do hope is the case.
Like when I was preparing the content for this session, I was just thinking about someone who's sitting there feeling quite isolated, and I want to speak to that person who's like, I'm suffering every day with this issue that I have, whether it's IBS or it's constipation or
Juhi's talking to me right now.
Like where do you go from there? Because like you said, it's just this, I don't know what to do. I may have seen my GP, he may have given me a sheet. Sometimes you even get told it's all in your head or stress.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So,
well, like you said too, there is, and we've talked about this also, and we've also learned in our health profession, the connection, as you said, if stress is happening, it can throw off your hormones and so on. So there is a gut-brain connection, but it's not psychosomatic. Like, people need to recognize you're legitimately feeling symptoms that shouldn't be dismissed. And it makes people feel so much better when they're validated and told, like, yes, there is something there and it can be fixed or it can be managed. So it makes you feel so much better. So Juhi, I want to be cognizant of our time here. Is there anything that you'd like to give us for parting words, or anything that we didn't necessarily maybe cover in our conversation with the viewers who are watching this, or even in preparation for the retreat?
I would say if you identify with what we're talking about with regards to gut issues, know that you're not alone. Know that it's not your fault. Know that even if you've had an appointment with a doctor and it's been dismissed or it hasn't been resolved, it doesn't mean that it can't be resolved. You can see a trained dietitian. You can join a program, someone like myself. I'm more than happy to help you. Or find a accredited practicing, I'm going to say this again, accredited practicing dietitian, not someone who's not qualified, who's just going to give you some advice that's not evidence-based. So there are genuinely, because gut health has become so relevant nowadays, there are tools. You just need to find the right person and don't give up. There is a solution. I know it's not, I'm not saying that your IBS will go away, but it can be managed. And that's what you need to know, that you can improve your quality of life. And whether it's something you've been suffering for few months or few years or for your whole life up till now, there is still a solution. You can always get better. So just know that.
I love that. I love that. Right. You're not alone. You can minimize the flare-ups. You can pinpoint exactly maybe what's going on, and you just need to find the right person to work with. So I absolutely love that. And I do think that with the retreat, like you saw, and people who have been watching me post a lot of things, there's such a variety of topics, and I really do believe everybody is an expert in what they're discussing. So there's quite a lot to choose from this whole event, and I'm really excited to have you on board. And I again appreciate you agreeing to be a part of this lineup too, and I can't wait to see you know, what you have to share with us on Sunday, December 5. So thank you again for spending time with me today.
Thank you so much. In fact, thank you. I want to say this, that thank you for rescheduling and, you know, making this happen. I'm so glad this conversation happened. It was so much fun.
Me too.
And I'm really looking forward to the retreat, not just to my session, but to the other amazing speakers. And I've had a chance to hear a little bit about what they're going to talk about. And I'm just so excited. I think it's all really tying in well together.
Me too. And it's a wonderful way, I think, to also wrap up the end of the year where people feel like they need a little bit of a breather, or like to get encouraged and motivated for the start of a new year. So this is all perfect timing. I'm excited too. Again, thank you so much, Juhi. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Bye.